Welcome, one and all. This is a specific topic on the power of integrations during our lunch and learn. Uh, I want to start talking about something that is not related to the power of integrations to start off this conversation here. The power of myth. A series of talks by Joseph Campbell that I watched about a couple of decades ago. It's older than that, but I watched them 2 decades ago. It has a big influence on me as it had influence on millions of other people. We could see and understand that myth held sway across four corners of the world. And very similarly, in a similar manner, Greg was pointing out something this morning when he talked about resiliency. He was talking about how different communities far flung from each other in the world resort to very similar approaches, actions or responses to be resilient and in overcoming adversity. So this is exactly what we are going to talk about today in the power of integrations. We have a team of experts here to be led by Maxime Chambruel. He is the managing director with the OSI Latin America operations, and he will be moderating this discussion on the power of integrations. Max is also a vice president of the Odoo Community Association. He's a very well loved member of the open source community in the world today. If there are a handful who are that, and we are very privileged to have Max amongst us today, and he is truly an international icon with his contributions to the open source community. We have joining Max, we have a team of elite panelists from our customers, and I welcome them and thank them again for taking time to be with us today. Max, it's over to you now.
Thank you, Balaji. Hello, everyone. So the power of integrations, I just want to make some definition first. It's not only technical integration about integrating application with another, but we'll also discuss the subject as to implementing a new system into an existing ecosystem or organization. And to discuss the subject today, we have 3 persons from our customer. First, I'd like to introduce Nick Burdick. So Nick Burdick spent the first 14 years of his career working as a design engineer and manager at the Boeing company before moving into his family industrial distribution and service business, Progressive Sealing, in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. At PSI, he has managed multiple systems integration projects, such as the company Odoo implementation, and also manages the service, machining, and repair department. With us, we'll also have Toni Briels, and Toni is from the supply chain organization within IBM System Group. His team manufactures and distributes IBM software products from warehouses in Boulder, Colorado, and Dublin, Ireland. He and his team are nearing the end of a 3-year adventure to replace and modernize the logistics software they use to manage their warehouse operation. And finally, Kyle Robinson is a second-generation ERP system analyst. Having grown up in the business, Kyle takes great pleasure in building long-term relationships with customers. SSI was founded in 1979 by his father, Cletus Robinson. Kyle holds an MBA from Louisiana State University and is certified Odoo expert. Kyle's primary duty is managing customer implementation projects as well as internal business function for the SSI team. And so our first questions to Nick, and the idea is to help people in the audience that have to make the decision whether to go with an integration or to do the development route. So what were the driver behind the choices between those two options?
Sure thing. So just doing an audio check. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. So yeah, I'll address this a couple of different ways. When I think about integration, I think about two different ideas or concepts here. So when we first started Progressive Ceiling, when I came on to join the company, Progressive Ceiling had one very archaic system that was handling sales orders, accounting, and a little bit of inventory management. And the purchase order process was essentially paper, and it was the epitome of a system that doesn't make sense in the digital world, because we would print out paper Word templates, write on them, and then scan them back in to keep a record of them. So it really didn't make any sense. So the integration route for us was, once we realized it started because we wanted to have a quotation system. We didn't have any system. All we had was a system that handled sales orders, and we didn't have any way of handling quotations and anything prior to the sales order process, confirmed sales order process. So we went with Odoo and decided that if we were going to go and try and integrate the pre-sales process, we might as well integrate the entire value stream. It was around the time when we had started our service business as well and had manufacturing that we also had to do. So it really made sense to pull everything together into a single system. And we couldn't develop on our existing platform because it was very old, DOS based. The database was a disaster. So it just wasn't something we could access. And we went with open source because we were able to change it. We had quite a number of unique changes we had to make to Odoo. I can't say that was all sunshine and roses, but it was nice to be able to do it, because there was no system we could see that would just be perfect for us out of the get-go. And in the process, it gave us a chance to look at what we did and how we worked. So we tried to be very pragmatic about the approach and try and say, okay, maybe we need to change the way we work and not just make the system work for us. And that was a little bit painful, but it ended up working out well in the end. And then the second type of integration we've done is we actually integrated we're working on Odoo 8. We did it a number of years ago and haven't taken the jump to a higher level of Odoo. And so we don't like the CRM system resident in Odoo 8. So what we did was we brought in a CRM system, an outside CRM system, and we worked on integrating that with Odoo. And overall, that's gone relatively well. We're able to integrate the two together using the APIs, and that's been a very powerful item for us, or a very powerful process for us that's happened in the last few years. So yeah, I think it just made sense to bring it all together. We never had the data that we do now, and we're able to utilize that as a leadership team and make business decisions based upon it. Whereas, I mean, as a 40-year company, I hand it to my parents that kept the company going, but it was very much gut feel, and we're able to make decisions now based upon some historic data and also forward looking. So
Toni, Kyle, any of you wants to jump in on the question?
This is Tony. We had some similar factors in play for us. Cost was obviously one of the biggest ones for our choice to move away from a 20 to 30-year-old internally built system.
Okay, and Kyle, any insight from your perspective on the questions?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of background on the project that we did with OSI. We're also an Odoo partner, but really looked around the landscape for someone who could support us on a big project, a project that we didn't have the exact expertise for the requirements. So we partnered with OSI to launch a project for a motor shop. And in that case, it just, there are a lot of very industry specific systems out there, and going the open source route allowed the customer to get kind of the best of both worlds. So they were able to get all of the integration ability, all of the great features and functions that just typically are not found in very industry specific models or systems, but then get that functionality built within Odoo or whatever system they would choose. But in our case, it was Odoo, and so they were able to get the best of both worlds. They get a lot of the features that are great from open source, but then build that industry specific workflow, accounting requirements and things of that nature. So
Thank you. So as I presented during the Tony's introductions, Tony, you've been going through integrations projects and hopefully finishing one, 3 years one soon. So can you give us your based on your experience, the challenges that you guys faced during the project with the proliferation of technology and application? I mean, anybody can imagine how many applications IBM is running internally. So what were the challenges and how did you answer those during your project?
Yeah, so for us, there were a number of challenges, some bigger, some smaller, obviously. One of the biggest ones that we kind of didn't really anticipate, but always knew in the back of our minds, was this need to, or the requirement to balance our needs versus our wants when it came to integrating Odoo into our business. We always developed our own software, and so we always kind of, if somebody wanted a new button for something, or we had a special path for just one customer, we would have that coded into our system. And Odoo made it easy to do some of that same kind of thing. The problem was we didn't really want to do any more of that than we absolutely had to. So there was always this constant need to remind ourselves that there were reasons for making our move, mostly cost, and the cost to maintain all of the spaghetti that we had built up over the years. We did not want to rebuild that same spaghetti and just put ourselves back in the same position. So sometimes we were very successful in that, sometimes we weren't. The exact ratio will prove out in time. So the second integration challenge for us was integrating with IBM systems. We had a number of internal order systems that all get aggregated down into Odoo, so we don't use the Odoo order mechanism directly. So getting all of that to work was kind of funky. And then on the back end, we had to use our own distribution mechanisms as well. And getting all of those pieces to work together has been kind of a challenge, especially in the testing phase, which is where we're at right now, because we're learning that our test systems were not set up for doing full end-to-end testing of every possible path from every country we can get orders from and ship to. In the past, all of our changes have been little trivial changes, and we would test around, adding one little bit or piece. And now that we're doing a full-on swap, trying to figure out, can we get all of our paths to work, has been a bit of a challenge. And for now, we're just documenting those deficiencies so we can better handle them in the future. Hopefully we can get smarter about that as we grow. And then our last big challenge is really just been time to get it all done. We took a long-term approach. We knew it would take us 2 to 3 years to get rolled over, and we're closer to the 3-year mark than we are to the two-year mark. Part of that was planned. We weren't sure we wanted to go down this road. When you're used to owning all of your own software in-house, and then starting to pull in software from outside, and then have it have these big red flags called open source, which for a company like IBM up until the last, say, 5 years has been kind of a scary thing. We kind of wanted to dip our toe first. So we started out very slowly, put a small piece of the business that we could easily pull back onto Odoo. It's been working great. Now the challenge is our users want to get it all rolled over, and they want it rolled over yesterday. We're hoping to have it rolled out in the next month or two. So hopefully we'll get around that. But that's been our other bigger internal challenge. And then lastly, we have what we call an external challenge, but it's really internal to the company. As you can imagine, IBM has all sorts of rules and regulations about how we do stuff. And one of our initial passes, we used an external reporting system, and I don't remember, Balaji, you can remind me the name, the report mechanism that we switched everything over to in the beginning. And then we found out that IBM would not let us use it because it was perceived to have some security issues. We didn't explore that deeply enough and ended up switching everything back to Odoo's native QWeb, which is working fine. It was just a really expensive thing to do, to code it all one way and then to have to yank it all out and code it all again a second time. So we had one miss on our forecast of how or one big miss, I should say, on our forecast of how we were going to integrate Odoo with the rest of IBM. So those are kind of our major 4 challenges and kind of how we met them.
And how so it sounds like in terms of integration, it was implementing Odoo within the company, but also a change in the fact that instead of working internally to make changes to the solution, it was also integrating. You were also integrating with OSI as a external vendor within that project. How did that go?
Actually, that was one of the things that really helped us get over the line as far as deciding to go with an open source project like Odoo, knowing that Odoo, the company, was there to support it along with business partners like OSI, and having a business partner like OSI that really understood enterprise businesses like IBM. We interviewed a lot of business partners before we started down this path. And some were really good at handling mom and pop shops, and IBM is not one of those. And so having that relationship of somebody that could understand how we worked really helped a lot.
What about you, Nick, about the challenges during your projects? Within the course of my career, when I went into a shop and they had a pretty old system, it was to me a signal to say, well, they might be hard to switch. There might be problems with change management here. How did you tackle those challenges?
Yeah, no, I think I'll definitely echo everything that Toni said. I would also add to it people. I think one of the challenges we ran into, and we're a small team. I mean, our company is only 22 people. And so, but, you know, as the person that started, I was doing some side software development work for Progressive Ceiling even prior to leaving the Boeing company. And what happened was, you know, so I was in it. I was in the middle of Odoo. I was in the middle of coding Odoo, deeply in the implementation as the focal for it. And what was amazing to me, and I should have recognized this, but what was amazing to me is how not everybody was on the same page as me. Not everybody wanted, not everybody was as interested in learning how the new system worked. And I've learned that the hard way. So it's one of those things where you have to make sure that you have buy-in, that you're understanding where all of your users are at as far as their technology comfortableness, their level, their where they stand. And so we definitely had challenges on that front. And then we did, you know, we have done a lot of things inside of Odoo, like I said, where we've changed the way we work. So switching systems wasn't a huge problem. People were eager to get off the old system and into something that was more user-friendly, had more of the sort of modern button click style that they were used to. But all the corner conditions we dealt with, having to say, oh, well, we have this process we need to be able to handle. And none of that was really addressed at the beginning. We did the best we could trying to figure out the process workflows, but in hindsight, I would have done that more. I would have really gone into all the details of how people work. I think you can save yourself a lot of time and money by really digging into, tell me everything you do in a given day, and how do you do it, and how do you think about it, and how do you think about your work, and how do you flow through it. That work done up front makes a big difference.
Thank you, Nick. And what about you guys? You went through some and completed integration projects, and so what were the challenges, and did you really get what you expected from those integrations looking backwards?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so yes, I get to see it from both sides. I do this every day and have several concurrent implementation projects going on right now. And I think that the short answer is it's never done, and we're always iterating on the last work. So I can tell you for the project that we partnered with OSI on, the approach that we took to the implementation was first to start with the workshop, and Nick just talked about that. It was really a week-long, brain dump, if you will, to put everything out there that we needed to accomplish, every process that we needed to, have an answer for, and just make sure that the requirements were really clear before we started. And then after that was done, we started the process of replacing all of the, what I would call necessary functionality, the things that the company needed on day one. And really in that workshop process, try to eliminate the things that were not necessary. And so the goal was basically on January 1st, which it was January 1st of 2020, so almost a year ago now. The goal was that the company could turn off the old system, turn on the Odoo system, and not skip a beat. We tried to set expectations, and I think we did a good job of setting expectations that we were not trying to get everybody's wish list in to the go live. The go live was simply to replace the old functionality with a new modern platform, a scalable platform, and we were going to, look at the entire project as a phase 1, phase 2, and continuing project to continue to grow the company and take it to new levels. And so we were successful in that. We replaced on January 1st all existing functionality pretty well. There was bumps, absolutely, there's bumps, but the company, really was really happy when all the COVID stuff started, that they were able to get all of their employees home safely, working from home remotely, whereas their old system would have been just, I don't know. I mean, it would have been really tough on the company had they not finished this project in January to be ready for what was going to happen come March here. So the company was ready, and then we've continued to iterate. Since then, we've done more projects. We've implemented more modules of Odoo. We've leaned into additional workflows, kind of some of the wish list stuff that we left on the cutting floor in phase 1. We've come back and focused on very specific departments and how we could help them. We've made HR improvements around, payroll and these sorts of things, just not just the replacement, but taking it that next level and making people more efficient. And implemented quality module, implemented the survey module. We've integrated with the Synology platform, which is you may be familiar with. It has a lot of open source tools, but it's a network storage device. The company does takes, just terabytes of pictures of motors that they disassemble. They take them apart and document the failures and things. And so We've linked the Synology platform to Odoo to pull the pictures in and provide the pictures in reports and things like that. So I think the answer to the question is the company came out of the implementation with a scalable, future-proof, I'll put that in parentheses, platform, because I'm not sure that such a thing exists, but came out in a way that they knew they could continue to grow the company, and they're going to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into integrations going forward, and know that they've got the right backbone in place there. So
one of the result of integration I've seen in some companies is a increase in employee engagement, because before the IT department or the leadership was just saying no, can't do this, or other requests from the employees to improve the system were denied. And then after the implementation, or a couple months after, we can see a shift, because the answer is not no anymore. It's yes, we can, but and that's where people like, did you experience this? Did you see a change in people engagement with the company now that the requests were listened? Or
absolutely, and that's really, I think, hitting on what's happened in the 11 months or so since the company went live. More departments and department heads have come forward and said, one, they understand Odoo now. Okay, so when we started, it was just trying to learn it and understand the concepts and understand the buttons to push and these things. Well, now as time has gone on, they're very comfortable as users, and they understand the relationships, and they understand the processes better. And so the department heads have come to us with a lot of things. I can tell you, we just finished. They use the kiosk, for the shop employees to clock in and out of the system, and we've done enhancements around automatically deducting lunches based on the user's input. The user can say, yes, I just want to deduct 30 minutes from my lunch break, and these sorts of things. And these have all been direct, ideas brought directly by the department heads, and the executive management of the company has basically looked at all of them, looked at the cost to finish them, and made a decision, basically yes or no. But they didn't have the ability to do that in a legacy platform, or in a platform with closed source code. I mean, here you are with Odoo now implemented, and it's not can we do it, it's how much will it cost, is there enough value and benefit to it. But the answer to can we do it is pretty much always yes. So it's true.
Tony and Nick, are you experiencing the same shift as well? Maybe not at IBM. If you had your internal team, the answer was maybe always yes. I don't know. Any comment, feedback?
Well, actually, kind of to build on both what Nick had said earlier and what Kyle just got done saying, one of the things that helped us with buy-in from the user side was they got to have influence on what the system looked like. And that there were things that when we first rolled out, just as kind of prototyping, this is kind of what we think it looks like. What do you think? And we got suggestions back from our warehouse floor guys on, can you change this flow or add this button, or change these words on a screen. That really helped us with buy-in, giving them that ability. Where with our legacy system, yes, we had full control and we could kind of change everything, but at the same time, it was PL1 code that was running on MBS. So our flexibility in terms of what does the UI look like was rather limited. I mean, basically, you got a dumb terminal and that was it, which was fine 20 years ago, but not so much anymore. So yeah, the ability to let users give that kind of feedback is really important and helpful.
I would agree with that too. I think that one of the things that was really great to see is once we got through some of the hurdles in Odoo, showing people how easy it was to find information using searches, and once people got a little bit more comfortable, getting the buy-in was pretty easy. And then now I think I would have to tear it away from them, kicking and screaming, because there's so many items that have made their life so much easier. One-click transfer to invoices from sales orders and duplicating and all the stuff. None of that stuff was able in the old system. So access to data and ease of information. I think it's you just have to get through some of the hurdles, and then I think you can show people there's been a lot of wins, that's for sure, on our side.
And is the wins depending on we just had a talk with the this professor at Chicago University. Is it generation based? Like, do you see different behavior from ages, or it's turns out to be exactly the same?
I think for us, we've certainly seen ease of use in generation. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we had big differences. I had people that were just not even interested. I still have people that have a much harder time understanding that why the system behaves the way it does, whereas our younger generation folks that are more used to workflows within an online web application, they get it. They understand that when I click this button, it's going to do something and probably change something else on the screen. I think that our company's pretty good, but I mean, we definitely have some gaps in there. But I think the wins across the board, as long as, especially at the leadership level, as long as you're able to get information out that is useful, and you have to think about it from their perspective, what is going to be interesting to the various users. But I think you're on the mark. I mean, I do think the generational difference does matter for sure.
I think I think you're right that it matters more, and part of my role today is selling systems as well, and that initial consulting that comes with it, and the value that and I wouldn't just say millennials by any means, but maybe the sub 40 crowd puts on UI and web access or browser access to information is cannot be understated. I mean, I think that it's going to continue, and it's not just are they going to want it? They're going to demand it. They're going to demand it going forward, and these companies all want real-time data, real-time access, and it's our development staff, they often comment about Google and these companies who put together these free systems that the whole world uses, and they just work perfectly, and there's never an error message, and they never go down, and they're always just seamless. And you go into a small business, and they're looking for that level of solution, not realizing the couple $1 billion that have gone into the things that they use on their phone every day, or many billions of dollars. But I think that users will continue to demand connected systems and connected workflows moving forward in a big way.
I think you hit something, and what's funny about the billions of dollars going into it is that they get it for free too.
This is an everyday thing in our office, guys talking about this, because our customers are like, well, I just want you to add this column, subtract this column, multiply this column, and then and produce this number for me. And you just kind of like, well, that's not exactly the way it works. There's some more thought, and there's math behind that, and there are tables, and we can't just snap our fingers. But when we look at some of these apps and the things that they just do so easily for free, it's hard for the user to understand that. And I'll see managers come into new environments, and start asking questions about trying to get this report out or whatever it is, and it's like, okay, we can do that, but it's not going to be just this afternoon we get you some new reports. These things are complex, even as much as they've advanced, and as fast as it is to develop in the open source world. it still takes time, it still takes thought and investment for sure.
You may get surprised. I would suggest you follow the talk this afternoon about the new features of Odoo 14 with Daniel Reyes. And yeah, Odoo spreadsheet is pretty amazing in terms of
No
reporting.
doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Lots of improvement. That's what I'm telling you. I mean, it's amazing how fast it's going. But I'll tune in.
Any other comments before we take questions from the audience? Balaji or Marissa, any questions from the public?
Yes, Maxime, thank you. Wonderful discussion so far. Tony, to answer your question you had raised earlier, it was a tool called Jasper Reports.
Yes.
And the implication of that on security at IBM, yes, that should have been researched further right at the beginning, at the gate. Yeah, that is one. So I do have a question for you, Tony. You
Yes,
did mention a spaghetti of processes that IBM has, workflows that IBM has from legacy, right? So many years of working. How critical was it to revisit the drawing board and unraveling the mystery before saying, hey, let's integrate, or we will replace this workflow with something new? So this is a decision, it's like a buy or a make, right? So how do you determine, how do you decide between replacement or integration? How did you do it in your scenario?
okay. Yeah, it was actually kind of a two-step thing. Before I started with this group, I started with the group about 6 months before we launched on our Odoo project, or maybe a little longer than that. Anyway, a couple of the senior guys were looking at changing our model entirely. A little bit of history, we have, it was mentioned in my biography, we have 2 warehouses, one in Boulder and one in Dublin. And 2 of our senior guys were looking real hard at basically just eliminating our warehouses and going entirely to a build-to-order model instead of doing any build-to-plan. We do a percentage of that today, and the thought was to just eliminate all of our warehouse logistics and build as orders came in. That was going to be another homegrown system. And looking at what that was going to cost, it was going to take a minimum of 5 years to recover that cost. So there was kind of already a plan to build something new or to go to something new. Then it became a question of, are we going to roll our own, or can we find something off the shelf? And when we got to that 5-year plus plan on that initial roll your own, we kind of already knew that we weren't going to roll anything else of our own. So it was a choice of, are we going to stick with what we've got until the very end, which who knows when that will be, or is there something out there off the shelf that we can pull now that will let us make it work? And so then we started digging around, and we looked at both proprietary software and open source, and really to be able to integrate with our systems, going with something like Odoo was kind of our only option. So and then it was the cost of making that migration versus what we would get back from retiring our old systems actually was a fairly easy business case for us, because when you retire mainframe software, at least within IBM, that's a huge cost. So it wasn't, that part of it wasn't a tough decision once we got to the solution that would let us do the integration that we needed with other IBM systems.
Well, thank you guys for your participation to OSICON and this panel. I hope everybody got lots of insight, especially the one that are in the decision making of going through an integrations or doing some internal development. And hope you enjoyed the rest of your day.
Yes. Thank you, Max, Tony, Kyle, and Nick, for a wonderful discussion here. If we look back to, I was jotting down some words as you were all speaking, things that came up: hesitation, understanding, realization, flexibility, feedback, involving the user base, vested interest people have, trust, partnership, past. So let's take a moment to hear these words and see how close it is to the theme that we have today, which is resilience and change management. So for the entire day today, that's the topic, and this is exactly it. So irrespective of whether we talk about technology or business, or like Professor Eric Leodis did on learning and teaching open source frameworks that we heard from Joseph Jacks today, or the power of strategies and how we can develop those from Major General Hicks. Uh, we are honing in on resilience and change management as we are going through this. Once again, thank you, the panelists and Max, for having this wonderful discussion and making it possible for us all to participate. Thank you very much.